forgot that today's the first Sunday of the month. We're going to take the offering for Brother Ellis, so we'll do it next week. And we'll get back on schedule. I'd like to turn to Mark chapter 5. Read verses 21 through verse 34. And when Jesus was passed over again by ship unto the other side, much people gathered unto him, and he was nigh unto the sea. And behold, there cometh one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name. When he saw him, he fell at his feet, and besought him greatly, saying, My little daughter lieth at the point of death. I pray thee, come and lay thy hands on her, that she may be healed, and she shall live. And Jesus went with him, and much people followed him and thronged him. And a certain woman, which had an issue of blood 12 years, and had suffered many things of many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and was nothing bettered, but rather grew worse, when she had heard of Jesus, came in the press behind, and touched his garment. For she said, If I may touch but his clothes, I shall be whole. And straightway the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of that plague. And Jesus, immediately knowing in himself that virtue had gone out of him, turned him about in the press, and says, Who touched my clothes? And his disciples said unto him, Thou seest the multitude thronging thee, and sayest thou, Who touched me? And he looked round about to see her that had done this thing. But the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what was done in her, came and fell down before him, and told him all the truth. And he said unto her, Daughter, thy faith hath made thee whole. Go in peace, and be whole of thy plague. This 5th chapter of Mark, we see some of the miserable dilemmas that mankind faces in earthly life. They're brought forth in this chapter. It is a chapter that illustrates the desperate need of miracles in life. It's a very eventful chapter. We see Jesus at work all through the chapter, manifesting his love, his grace, his mercy, his power, his authority, his all-sufficiency. It is a revelation of the fact that Jesus is greater than the miseries and the needs of man. Now, what is recorded here is the record of Jesus healing a woman who had a life-affecting, life-threatening flow of blood. In this miracle, there's a picture, of course, of the salvation of a sinner. There's also a picture of the various and desperate needs of God's people being met by Jesus. There is a picture of the character of faith. And in this particular miracle, what the physicians and money could not accomplish, verse 26, Jesus could. And that's our subject. The physicians and money could not, but he could. So we want to, first of all, look at the background of this miracle. Verse 21, Jesus returns to Capernaum, or the area of Capernaum. Jesus was passed over again by ship unto the other side. So He's back. He's back on the west side of the sea, near Capernaum. It is where He had previously brought a nobleman's son from the brink of death. It is where He had previously taught in the synagogue, to the amazement of the people. And in that synagogue He cast out a demon from a demon-possessed man. He later would enter the house of Simon and Andrew, and He would heal Peter's mother-in-law. And when a multitude gathered at that house, He healed many. Following those miracles, He and the apostles left Capernaum, and He returned. And when He returned, a great multitude of people had gathered. And it was then that Jesus healed the paralyzed man who was carried on his bed to where Jesus was. Jesus again went into the synagogue, and there He healed a man with a withered hand. It was also in Capernaum that He healed a centurion's servant. And He raised a widow's son to life. This was followed by a great multitude gathering unto Christ, Jesus teaching them in parables. And following that, Jesus and the apostles again would leave Capernaum. And they went to Gadara. And there, of course, Jesus liberated a man from a legion of demons, which is what we looked at last week, transforming his life. Following that miraculous display of His power and authority over the forces of hell, the townspeople were terrified, and they pleaded with Him to depart, wanting absolutely nothing to do with Him. So Jesus and the apostles get back into the boat, and they head back over to the other side of the Sea of Galilee. We read in Mark 5:21, and when Jesus was passed over again by the ship unto the other side. Luke 8 verse 40, and it came to pass that when Jesus was returned. So Jesus is back. He's back near Capernaum. And there He is. The one who has shown to the people in that area that He can alter, He can transform impossibilities. He can alter and transform death, darkness, brokenness, sickness, disease, desperation, helplessness, hopelessness, distress, sorrow. He can transform all of it. And there He is, the one who can bring peace and assurance and joy unspeakable. He's back. And there He is, the one who can. The one who can fix broken lives. The one who is all fullness. He's back. And the people know He's able. They know He's all sufficient. That brings us to the scene. He returns to Capernaum. And Mark states in Mark 5:21, much people gathered unto Him because of what they'd seen in the past. And Luke says in Luke 8 verse 40, the people gladly received Him, for they were all waiting for Him. They were waiting for Him. So it's a scene of great excitement. And out of this multitude comes a ruler of the synagogue named Jairus. And he pleads with Jesus on behalf of his daughter, who was sick, who was dying. We see that in Mark 5:22 and 23 and Luke chapter 8, verse 41. And we read there in Mark 5:24 that Jesus began to make his way to the house of Jairus to heal this man's daughter. And Jesus went with him, and much people followed him and thronged him. They were pressing in upon him. Luke took notice of the same. Luke 8, verse 42, as he went, that is, to the house of Jairus, the people thronged him. So there's a multitude of people crowding and swarming Jesus. And as Jesus and this mob of people are headed to the house of Jairus, and as news begins to spread that Jesus is back and he's going to perform a miracle of healing upon the daughter of Jairus, no doubt that crowd continued to grow. So the scene is a very large crowd of people packed into a narrow street, and they are swarming Jesus. The excitement is building. And next week we'll look at Jairus' daughter. But while this was going on, while they're headed to the house, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, you have this huge crowd of people. Matthew, Mark, and Luke draw our attention to one woman, a particular woman. Matthew says in Matthew 9:20, and behold a woman. You have this huge crowd. And Matthew says, behold a woman. Mark writes, chapter 5, verse 25, and a certain woman. And Luke writes, Luke chapter 8, verse 43, and a woman. So all three, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, direct our attention to a woman in that crowd. And this woman, like Jairus, was desperate for a miracle in her life. So the account of this woman really takes place within a larger story or a larger account of Jesus on his way to the house of Jairus to heal his sick and dying daughter. Again, there's a large crowd, but our attention is directed from that crowd to a certain woman. So let's look at her. The condition and dilemma of this woman. She, of course, is emblematic of the unsaved sinner. She is also emblematic of the condition that a saved person can succumb to as well. This woman had a very real and serious need. The woman in the account is not known by her name. Rather, she is known by her problem, by her situation. which speaks of the greatness of her problem and situation. Matthew, Mark, and Luke each record of this woman that she had an issue, a flow of blood. She had a physical, unnatural flow of blood that would not stop. Matthew says, Matthew 9:20, that she was diseased with an issue of blood. That means she was ailing, she was contaminated. She had a disease. Mark 5:29 describes it as a plague. It's an infestation. That which is tormenting, that which ravages the body. Now, under ceremonial law, Leviticus 15, verses 25 through 27, this would mean that this woman was ceremonially unclean, which simply means she's under the curse of the law. She's an outcast. But our attention is drawn to her. And there she is. She's diseased. She's plagued with a flow of blood. And this had been going on for quite a while. Mark and Luke, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, all three, record that she had been in this condition for 12 years. For 12 years. That's approximately 4,380 days. That she has been plagued, diseased with this flow of blood. For 12 years, she has suffered. Well, 12 years can go by quickly, but not when you're suffering. It's a long 12 years. For 12 years, she was in anguish. For 12 years, she was in distress and misery. For 12 years, she experienced heartache. For 12 years, she was vexed and tormented physically, emotionally, and spiritually. For 12 years, this woman experienced various layers of pain. Again, there was physical pain, there was emotional pain. There she is. After 12 years, she no doubt is weakened, greatly impaired by her condition. 12 years, approximately 4,380 days, she has awoken to a life of suffering and sorrow. This woman was greatly marred. But her root problem was this flow of blood. That's her root problem. Now, this flow of blood contributed to many other problems. Due to this flow of blood, we read in Mark 5, verse 26, that she had suffered many things. She suffered many things of many physicians. During those 12 years, she had tried many remedies. Notice, many physicians. She, for 12 years, went to a variety of doctors seeking a cure. seeking a remedy to her problem. But Mark records in Mark 5:26 that she was nothing bettered, but rather grew worse. Luke writes, Luke 8:43, neither could be healed of any. For 12 years. She would go from physician to physician in hope of a cure, in hope of a remedy for her problem, only in time to have her hopes and her expectations crushed over and over, again and again. So she would go to one doctor. He would prescribe a specific treatment plan. She would try it, thinking this is going to work, only to find in time it's getting worse. So she would go to another physician. He perhaps would give her an entirely different treatment plan. And with hope and encouragement filling her heart, she would try it. But in time, again, she would realize, I'm not getting any better. In fact, I'm getting worse. And this continued for 12 years. For 12 years. She had the hope of getting better. The hope of finding an answer to her condition. The hope that her life would be put back together. But she, for 12 years, was disappointed over and over again. That's a long 12 years. 12 years going to and fro without any remedy for a problem. Oh, and I'm sure there were people, oh, try this. You know, my aunt had that once, and she did this. And that's all kinds of... Suffered from many physicians. That doesn't mean they were licensed physicians. They might have been self-declared. But the physicians and their so-called remedies were not a root problem. But they all stemmed from her root problem. Her root problem was an issue of blood, a flow of blood. And in addition to going from physician to physician, experiencing one disappointment after another, she spent everything she had. Mark states in Mark 5, verse 26, that she had spent all that she had. She had nothing left. Luke states in Luke 8:43, had spent all her living upon physicians. And in addition to spending all that she had, she has nothing to show for it. Because she was nothing bettered. There was no improvement. But rather she grew worse. So look at her. Behold a woman. Her attention is drawn to her. And as you look at her, she's tried everything that she could think of. And she's getting worse with each passing day. And there she is. After 12 years, her health and her money, they're all gone. And as you look at her physically, mentally, emotionally, she is drained. And she is financially ruined. She's at a dead end. And her life is withering away. Someone says, well, I'm going to give her some money. That won't fix her root problem. Well, I would give her the name of my doctor. That won't fix her root problem. The physicians were not her problem. The fact that she's run out of money is not the root problem. Every aspect of her life has been affected by her root problem, an issue of blood. And hers is a life, because of this root problem, a life of anguish, a life of distress and misery, heartache, bankruptcy, desolation. And there she is. Her need is great. Her need is real. Her need is very serious. Her need is desperate. We'll consider the deliverance of this woman. This woman, while in this terrible and worsening condition, her life is deteriorating. We read in Mark 5:27, three things. She heard of Jesus. She came. And she touched his garment. The result, Matthew 9:22, and the woman was made whole. Mark says in Mark 5:29, and straightway the fountain, that is the source of her blood, was dried up. And Luke says, in Luke 8:44, and immediately her issue of blood, her flow of blood, her root problem, stanched, stopped. So she heard, she came, she touched. Her coming is described, the details of her coming is described. There she is, with her anemic face. Life is wasting away. And Mark says, Mark 5:27, that she came in the press, that is this multitude that's headed toward the house of Jairus, behind. He's given us the location. Behind. Luke records, Luke 8 verse 44, that she came behind him. Her quiet approach from behind in the crowd reflects both the shame and her social exclusion. But here she comes. Everywhere in front of her were people. And they are impeding her from getting to the one that she just knew and believed. Mark 5:26, if I may touch but his clothes, I shall be whole. She's basing that upon what she has heard. And she just knew, if I could just touch his clothes, I'll be whole. But as you look at the situation, there's no clear path to Jesus. There's no easy way. There's people everywhere. There's so much in the way. And there she is. Probably because of where she touched. Probably crawling through that mob of people. The whole time believing and saying to herself, if I may touch but his clothes, I shall be whole. She makes her way through that crowd, desperately wanting to be set free from her condition and dilemma. She presses forward toward Jesus, knowing, if I may touch but his clothes, I shall be whole. Eventually, again, the crowd is moving toward the house of Jairus. Eventually, she's close enough to stretch forth her hand. And Matthew declares, Matthew 9:20, that she touched the hem of his garment. And Mark states, or Luke states, Luke 8:44, that she touched the border of his garment. But Matthew, Mark, and Luke all give record of an obviously significant detail. She touched the hem. She touched the border of his garment. They all take notice of it, which leads to the question, what is the hem of his garment? I don't sew. But in sewing, the hem is the finished work. That's the finished work. And in this miracle, touching the hem of the garment was the same as touching him. We see that from reading the record. The fact that she touched the hem of his garment, or the border of his garment, is the same as touching him. It's a picture of trusting the finished work of Christ, the person of Christ. She touched the hem of his garment. Then her healing is described. Upon touching the lower part of his garment, she's immediately healed. It was a healing work within her. Mark 5, verse 29. She felt in her body. As soon as she touched, she felt in her body. She felt something. She felt in her body that she was healed of that plague. What plague? The issue of blood. That's her root problem. Mark also states in Mark 5, verse 33, knowing what was done in her. It's a healing within. 12 years of disease and plague are gone upon touching the hem of his garment. 12 years of anguish and suffering, gone. 12 years of disappointment and heartache, gone. Jesus did instantly what 12 years of doctors and 12 years of expense could not do. This woman, what this woman had sought for in vain for 12 years, is done in an instant. Again, Mark 5:29, and straightway the fountain of her blood was dried up. Jesus dealt, as he always does, with the root problem. As a result, she felt in her body that she was healed of that plague. And oh, what she felt that day. That day, this anemic and no doubt frail woman who was eroding away was changed from the inside out. And the disease, the turmoil, the stress, the burden, all gone. She's been set free. She's been released from that plague. Again, oh, what Jesus can do. The Lord gives her opportunity to testify. So there's the procession heading to the house of Jairus. And following this woman touching the hem of his garment, Jesus stops. The entire procession comes to a halt. And Jesus asked in Mark 5, verse 30, "Who touched my clothes?" Luke says in Luke 8:45, "Who touched me?" Again, the equivalent of touching his clothes was touching him. The apostles respond to Jesus' question. "Thou seest the multitude thronging thee, and sayest thou, who touched me?" Lord, are you kidding? You're being unreasonable. Everyone's touching you. And you ask, who touched me? Luke 8, verse 46. Jesus said, "Somebody hath touched me." Somebody. That's one person. Somebody has touched me. Mark records in Mark 5:32, he looked around to see her that had done this thing. It was at this point that the woman moves from behind him. Remember, she came in from behind to in front of him. Mark 5, verse 33. And fell down before him. Prepositions are important. She's moved from behind to before him. And as she is there, it says, and told him all the truth. Luke records, Luke 8:47, she came trembling, and falling down before him. So they both record that she's moved from behind to in front, and declared unto him before all the people. So everyone in that crowd is hearing. And notice what she declared. what cause, what reason she had touched him, and how she was healed immediately. She gave testimony in the hearing of the multitude. What cause she had touched him. So she told of her unstoppable flow of blood. She told of her 12 years of anguish and torment and affliction and sorrow and heartache, and how she went from physician to physician to find a remedy for her problem, and how that her hopes had been dashed over and over, and how that she had spent everything that she had, but instead of improving, she became worse. And then she says, I heard of Jesus. And I just knew that He could do what no one else could. And I came. I came believing that if I could just touch His garment, that I'd be made whole. And when I made my way through that crowd and reached forth and grasped the hem of your garment, speaking to Christ in the hearing of the multitude, I could feel myself immediately whole. I could feel that the flow of blood stopped as soon as I touched Thee. So she testifies. She had a story to tell. And for the saved by grace, what a story we have to tell. May we tell it verbally and with our life. And then Matthew, Mark, and Luke, following her testimony, all record what Jesus said to her. And the first word He said was daughter. Daughter. That's a word of love. That's a word of acceptance. Daughter. It is a word that tells her that she's beloved and that she's known. And all the joy that filled her soul when she heard that word, daughter. Daughter. This was followed by Him commending her faith and words of assurance to her. Mark 5, verse 34, He said, Thy faith hath made thee whole. Go in peace. For 12 years she has not known peace. Go in peace. Be whole of thy plague. Enjoy your wholeness. So this woman, very much aware of her condition, she could feel the terribleness and the desperateness of her plague, of her condition. The unsaved sinner must be brought to a point where they are made aware, where they are made to feel their sinful condition before a holy, pure, and righteous God. This woman also was brought to know that the physicians of men, the remedies of men, good works, prayers, baptism, church membership, family, upbringing. On and on we could go. Could not give her what she so desperately needed. The unsaved sinner must be brought to this place where they know and feel their condition. And they know no one has the answer. No one can do for me amongst men what I need. And this woman, knowing her terrible and desperate condition, knowing that she has nothing to offer, she's broke, and feeling a sense of urgent need, she believed. She believed that Jesus was what she needed. Believing that, she came. She came. You need a belief that will cause you to come. It's not just a historical belief. Well, I believe in Jesus. It's a belief that causes you to come. In spite of all the obstacles. And how did she come? She came weary, worn, broken, dying, bankrupt. She came as she was. And it was a God-imparted faith that drove her to Jesus Christ. And that's what the unsaved sinner needs. It's a faith. Not a faith that you can work up. A God-imparted faith that will cause you to come to Him. And there's nothing else you can do. You've got to come. Oh, that God in His grace, if you're unsaved, would grant you the faith that would cause you to come to Him. Trusting Him. Trusting His person and His finished work. She touched the hem of His garment and she was made whole. There is wholeness today for the unsaved sinner. And again, the saved individual can fall into some pretty sad conditions. And there is wholeness. And it's found in the same place you found it at salvation. Jesus Christ. Come. Come to Him. Brother Ben, if you'd come and